Hello, hi, and welcome to Prime Investors' first webinar. This webinar is on term insurance. It will be presented by Aarti Krishnan. We are very happy to start off the series of webinars here at Prime Investor. We hope to be doing a lot more of this in the upcoming days, weeks, and months. We think this will present us a unique opportunity to directly engage with our customers, our audience, our investors, and share with us on a more direct basis in terms of what our views are on in terms of various market events, happenings, and investment trends and products and so on, as well as um, good practices and methodologies to follow for investing. Um, we are kicking this off with a topic that is very important at this point of time. Aarti will be speaking more about why it is a topical topic in a few minutes, and we are. We are this is a very initial attempt, so please pardon any glitches. We'll fix it as we go along. We hope to have a smooth webinar, and let's hope it just goes off without any glitches. This webinar series is going to be a very interesting offering from Prime Investor. Like I said, we are going to be doing it in various topics in coming days and weeks. And this opening webinar, we are making it, since it's a pilot effort, we are making it a free offering. In future, we hope to be able to charge for this webinar a very reasonable fee, and paid subscribers of Prime Investor will get a substantial discount on our future webinar offerings. And people who are not subscribers of Prime Investor, I urge you to do so, if not for anything else, just for this reason at least. And a couple of very quick housekeeping words about this particular webinar. After I'm done with this little bit of prologue, Aarti Krishnan will do a presentation. And after the presentation is over, I'll be posing questions. I'll be posing your questions to Aarti, and we'll get her answers for the same. While Aarti is presenting, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat window. That's the window that I'll be monitoring to get your feedback and your questions. If you have a question and not a comment, please mark it as a question. There is a way in which you can do it in the chat window. You can mark a comment as a question. That will tell me what are the questions that I should be taking on and presenting to Aarti at the end of the webinar. There is not much of a introduction I need to give about Aarti. She's a very, very well-known figure in the Indian financial services scene. She's been a leading voice in the Indian financial services space. She's been tracking and writing about all kinds of financial products and regulations for over 25 years now. She's currently an editorial consultant for Hindu Business Line and was earlier a consulting editor for Value Research Online. She has been an awardee of the Sriram Sanlam Award for Excellence in Financial Journalism 3 times, and that's a remarkable achievement. We are very, very happy and proud to have Aarti on board with us on Prime Investor. She is a overall consultant for Prime Investor, but she specifically leads our efforts in fixed income products as well as on insurance. And it is in this capacity, and it is in this light that she created the term insurance platform product that we have on Prime Investor today, both our rankings and our DIY tool, apart from the calculator and the ebook and everything. All of these were Aarti Krishnan's work, or tireless work, over the last 2-3 months. And it'll be a very, very good opportunity for us to listen to her directly based on her experience looking at this space for many, many years now, especially researching for the term insurance platform product in Prime Investor over the last few months. So with this brief words, let me turn my video off and request you to come on. and take over.
Hi, I hope you can see me. Thank you, Shrikant, for such an elaborate and long introduction. I don't know after that what I can say about myself. Very uncomfortable going on and on about myself. But briefly, I mean, I have been tracking financial products and investment products for the last 25 years. Much of that stint was with the Hindu business line, where I also used to head a section called Portfolio, where we used to give investment recommendations on stocks, IPOs, mutual funds, a wide range of products. So my association with the Prime Investor has been since the firm's founding about a few months ago, and I have been writing on bonds, fixed income, and this term insurance is a new effort of ours, which I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 months, trying to basically design how we can rank term insurance. And so we feel it's quite a pioneering initiative in the sense that others in the market don't really try to rank products on the basis of objective criteria. So that's what we've tried to do. So today I would like to speak mainly about how a person can go about choosing a term insurance product. And it's not important to just choose one. You also need to choose one at an optimum cost, because while signing up for a term insurance product, unfortunately, we commit to pay premiums for the next 20, 30, or 40 years of our life. So it is important to choose it right the first time and get it right. And because later also there are no easy exit options available from such products. So it's very important to choose the right product. So the webinar today would be entirely concentrating on this. And I hope that at the end of it, you would actually be know enough to teach others about how to choose term insurance products, right? So let's go on to my presentation now. Yeah, right. I hope you can see the PPT clear. So, right. When you talk, in most of the investment products, when you start to tell people how to buy it, they would be still looking out what to buy, and people may be deciding how to buy the product. But in the case of insurance, I've found that no matter whom you ask, the person is already signed up for some kind of insurance plan. So this is because I believe life insurance is one of the most missold products in the Indian financial market. And everybody has a friend or a neighbor or an aunt or an uncle or a relative who is a part-time insurance agent and has been selling them some kind of insurance product. So we are all paying premiums on some kind of a product, but we don't really know what we've signed up for, right? I'm also saying this partly from personal experience. So I'll come back to you later with that.
Now people can see it.
Yeah. I hope now it's clear. Yeah. So this is just the first slide, right? So if you're already paying premium for an insurance product, there are these three questions you should ask yourself, right? If you think you already have insurance, why do you need this webinar? So the first question is, what is the sum that your nominees will get in the event of your death, right? Do you know the answer to that? Secondly, until what age does this life cover actually last? Okay. So do you know the answer to that? Just think about it. Is this a pure term product, an endowment product, a participating or a market linked product? You should ask yourself this question. Now, suppose all of this leaves you a bit foxed, and though you're paying your premium faithfully, you don't really know the answers to these questions. It means just one thing. It means that you probably invested in the wrong kind of insurance, right? Because it was the right kind of insurance, these would be the key questions to which you would already know the answers, right? So now let's go on to what is the right kind of insurance. So I feel that having done enough analysis on this, we feel that at Prime Investor, the primary purpose of taking insurance is basically to give you protection. So often you hear people saying that if you ask them, why have you signed up for this insurance plan? They'll say that to have disciplined savings. So the moment I started earning, somebody told me that sign up for this insurance so that every year you will be saving some amount compulsorily, right? A second thing they say is we are just saving and we are hoping that we'll get a huge lump sum at some time later in life. We don't know how much, but we will get a lump sum. People also use insurance wrongly for actually fulfilling their financial goals. Like if they're thinking of purchasing a home, taking a vacation, having child's education funded, people end up opting for an insurance plan when in fact what they need is a proper financial plan and an investment plan to accompany it, right? So the fourth excuse actually is the funniest. They say that I know I've signed up for the wrong plan, but I've already paid premiums for so many years. So now what should I do? I don't feel like exiting because I'll lose that money. Now, this is the typical problem that is called the sunk cost fallacy in finance, which is basically you give undue importance to the money that you've already spent on something, though it is irrelevant, right? Just because you paid in the 4 years, should you repeat that mistake for the next 25 years or 30 years? No, right? It is throwing good money after bad. So it is best that if you've signed up for the wrong kind of insurance product, you try and stop that and correct it and move to the right kind of product. So we are hoping that this webinar will help you do that. So why do you need insurance? Unless you know that first, you will not get clarity about what kind of insurance product you can buy. So the primary purpose of insurance is basically protection. Okay. So what do you mean by protection? You buy life insurance in order to protect your dependents by replacing your income in the case of your untimely death, right? So if all of us die at a ripe old age of 99 or 100, we won't have dependents at that time who are looking to us, right? So it is during our working years when we actually, if something happens to us, unfortunately, our income is lost to our family, that is sought to be replaced by a life insurance policy, right? Life insurance is actually not intended to make somebody wealthy at the expense of somebody's death, right? So one of the fundamental principles of insurance is actually only replacing income, and the person whose death actually results in the insurance payout should actually be earning member of the family, right? So when you think of insurance as savings, there are far better avenues for savings. Your bank deposit or a post office scheme or an NBFC FD, all of these are better savings avenues. Okay, because they give you a better return than any endowment plan that you can think of. If you want returns, really, insurance is not the place to go for it. You have to go to mutual funds, bonds, real estate, stocks, or other asset classes. For wealth creation, there is equities, right? In the long run, if you want a lump sum, if you want to become wealthy, you need a fat sum to be given to you. It's not insurance which you should be looking at. So that basically helps you ascertain that insurance is only needed for protection and nothing else, right? Many people tell you, when you ask them, why did you sign up for this costly insurance plan with such a high premium? They'll tell you, we because for the tax breaks, right? In my view, you should never make an investment purely for the tax breaks. We all know how fickle the tax laws are in India. Few years ago, actually, your interest from small saving schemes were exempt from tax. That break was removed. Then debt funds were exempt from tax if you held them for 1 year, beyond 1 year. Now that has changed a lot. So whichever instrument investment actually gives you a tax break, over time tax laws change and that tax break can go away. So I feel you should not take any investment decision purely for the tax break. There should be a core benefit from the product, and tax break can just be the icing on the cake, right? So recently also we had people who won't usually agree that tax breaks can go away. But in the recent budget, we had this proposal where the finance minister told us that if you want to avail of lower tax rates from here on, you have to give up all your existing exemptions, right? So if this kind of regime comes in also in future, we could see the tax breaks on insurance products go away. So let us not make a decision to invest in insurance for tax or for savings or for other reasons. Let us go there only for the reason which is valid, which is to protect your dependents. Once you have clarity on this objective, the term policy is the best way to achieve this, because they give you the maximum lump sum to your dependents at the lowest possible cost that you can think of. When you try to bundle insurance with investments like endowment, etc., a lot of your premium does not go towards the insurance cover. It goes towards your investment component, right? Sorry. So I'm sure all of you have heard pictures of our insurance, right? As I told you, insurance agents are all around us, and there's nobody practically who's earning who's never heard an insurance pitch. So a lot of people tell you why you need insurance, why you need insurance. And if you see the insurance advertisements on TV, also they are full of emotional overload. They'll tell you, oh, your family. It's all sentimental pitches, right? So I thought I should start out by telling you who doesn't need life insurance, right? There are four categories of people which may cover a lot of you who don't need life insurance. First thing is, if you have no income, you don't need insurance. Why is this? Because I told you earlier that insurance, the primary purpose of it is to replace your income in the event of your death. Now, if a person doesn't have an income, where is the need to pay premiums needlessly on that person's life, right? Now, this applies to students, for example. If you're a college student who doesn't earn anything yet, there is no need for you to have a life insurance policy. If you just passed out of college, you're exploring options, again, no need, right? If suppose you quit your job midway and you're planning to take up some other personal interest, etc., you're currently not earning. So your family is not losing because your income in the event of an unfortunate thing happening to you. Therefore, you also will not need insurance, right? Secondly, if you have no dependents, suppose you're a bachelor or a spinster, you're happily unmarried, or you're just started on your first job, you plan to remain single for the first few years, many people will tell you you immediately buy an insurance plan, but it is not necessary. Don't waste your savings simply paying premiums because you don't have dependents. Why? Whom do you want to enrich if you die, right? You don't want a stranger to get a lump sum in case you're not there, right? Just enjoy your money, don't have insurance. Secondly, if you're double income, no kids, and both of you are working, you don't have anybody to take care of, like elderly parents, you don't need insurance. Sometimes in our late 40s or 50s, some of us have earned enough and have a substantial nest egg. We have earning children. We don't have any dependents who will actually be financially deprived if we are not around, right? So, in that case, also, you don't need insurance. Let's talk of retirees. Now, many people in India actually think of insurance only when they get to their 40s or 50s. They'll say, now if something happens to me, let my dependents get let people in my family get a large lump sum. This is a very wrong strategy because when you take a term insurance plan in your 50s or 60s, it costs four to six times what it would have costed when you were younger, right? So I've just given an example of one plan here, HDFC Click to Protect. So at 35 years, if you signed up for this plan, the premium is 18,600 rupees. Same thing 20 years later, it costs you 65,600 rupees. Clearly, in your 50s, instead of taking up that insurance plan, if you just save the money and leave it to somebody, they will be very happy, right? No need to give it to an insurer unnecessarily. The fourth category are the lucky ones who have such a large net worth that in the case of their death, they can leave their savings and investments to their heirs and they can live very comfortably. Such people do not need insurance either, right? So if you fall in one of these categories, you can probably quit the seminar right now and go and enjoy yourself on a Saturday morning, right? So the only exception to these rules is that if you have large liabilities, so you may be a retiree, you may be a student, if you are maybe a wealthy person, but if you have large loans which will have to be paid by your family in the event you're not there, then you will need insurance to cover those liabilities, right? Now, there's a nice fun fact on the side which I've put up, which says some insurers even offer life covers for your child. Now, this is quite an appalling concept in my opinion because who would want to benefit financially from their child's death, right? But insurers do actually in India sell such products, and I myself know LIC products which actually offer cover for your child. They'll say, let me use a bit of Tamil here. They'll say that, sir, if you buy this term insurance cover, it ரொம்ப cheap வரும். So they say that the premium will be much lower if you take a cover for your child rather than for yourself. This is such a stupid pitch because obviously you're not worried about your child leaving you deprived of your financial security, right? It is your child which needs to worry about your death, right? So fine, having decided who needs life insurance really, let us get on to the big question: how much cover do you need, right? So typically when deciding on the cover, we take it quite casually. If an agent is pitching a policy to you, usually you'll go for a round number like 1 crore, or if you seem a little wealthy, they'll say 10 crore, right? But actually, 1 crore may not be enough for most of us, because what we are trying to do here is to replace our income in case we are not around, right? So the younger we are, the more working years we have ahead of us, over which we'll be earning an income which needs to be replaced, right? Some rules like 10x or 15x your income also may not cut it, because for each of us our life situation is very different. So some people may be living in a joint family with 3 or 4 dependents. Some may be just dinks, they may not have dependents. So both of them can never need the same life cover of 10x or 15x. So at Prime Investor, we have actually developed the full-fledged calculator to help you estimate how much term cover you need, right? So broadly, the steps are like this. First, you estimate your. Let me take you to that page. Yeah, sorry. So this is the calculator page. So it asks you to estimate your current age and the number of years left to retirement. Now, if you fill in those, suppose I say 45 and number of years left to retire. I plan to work for 30 years. I'm a workaholic. So, and suppose my family expenses per month are about 50,000 rupees today. Of this, I myself spend only 10,000, right? So I don't have to replace that income, right? Because I will not be around. So if I assume a modest inflation rate of 6% here, which is there in the calculator, then the future expenses come to 3 crore 79 lakhs, right? Now we go to the next one. Suppose I have one goal. I have a son who I want to educate, and I want 50 lakhs for his college education. I don't have any other goals. So then you go to the loan part. So suppose I have 30 lakh home loan outstanding. And I also have some amount in my PPF, VPF, etc., which amounts to 20 lakhs, right? Right. So I need a term cover of 4.3 crores, right? So most people, normal people, will get numbers like this. So this is why I'm saying this 1 crore thing is simply not enough. Okay. So let's get back to this. So the key rules in actually estimating your cover are estimating family expenses, reducing your own expenses, estimating your remaining working life, multiplying it, any unfulfilled goals that you have, which you're saving towards, any loans that you have that you need to repay, you need to add, reduce the assets that can be used to repay those loans in your absence, right? Now the second big question is, how long should life cover last? The rule is very, very simple, though people complicate it. It should cover your working life, because we said that the primary purpose of insurance is to replace your income when you are not around. It is important that the cover actually lasts throughout your working life. There is no need to have an insurance cover until you're 85, 90, 99, etc. Insurers often push these covers today because they want to get fatter premiums, right? Why am I saying this? Premiums rise exponentially the longer you stretch your cover. So if you go from a cover up to 65 to a cover up to 75, the premium rises a little. But if at the moment you start stretching it more, actually the premium that you end up paying really shoots up like anything, right? If you look at the table on the right hand side, you will see that I've given actual premiums charged by ICICI PruSmart, which is a term insurance plan, for a 1 crore policy for a 45-year-old woman, right? So if this person actually signed up for insurance up to 65 years of age, the premium she'll be paying is 20,000 odd rupees. If she wants to take it up to 75, premium goes up a little, 5,000 rupees, 25,000 rupees. The moment she says she wants to cover herself up to 85, it goes to 35,000. And if she wants to cover herself up to 99 years, which is a whole life policy, the premium more than doubles, right? And remember, If you start at 45, every year you will be paying the higher premium until the time you turn 99 or 85 or 75, right? So right now itself, your premium will start going up from day one and you will end up paying a lot of premium to the insurance company. Now, why am I saying beyond the age of 65 or something, you don't need your insurance to last? Because at that stage, most of us have substantial savings which are normally there anyway in case we pass away, right? So here, just for an illustration, I've given a small example. Instead of taking a whole life plan, if you take a plan up to 65 and then get covered up to for the invest the 20,000 rupees that you saved at 7% for 30 years, you will anyway get 41 lakh rupees, right? Whether you die or not, that's a good thing, right? No need to depend on the insurer to pay your beneficiaries. When you invest this money that you saved, you will get the money anyway, right? So having decided on the first two important questions, which is how much cover you need and how long you should get covered, we come to the more complicated business of choosing insurance options, right? Now, in India, financial product makers don't like to keep any product simple. They like to add a lot of bells, whistles, add-ons, all of which have the effect of adding to your cost, maybe not with commensurate benefit, right? Insurance plans are no exclusion. So when you go to choose a term insurance plan on any insurer's website or through an agent, you will be faced with a lot of questions that will confuse you. So what we are trying to do here is to resolve those questions for you. So the first question that is put to you is, do you want a limited or a regular premium payment, right? So what is a limited premium payment and what a regular premium payment? In a regular premium payment, it is the usual policy. Suppose you want a cover for 30 years, you will end up paying premium for all 30 years. That is regular premium. In limited premium, the insurer tells you that if you want to restrict your premium only to 7 years or 10 years, great, take this limited premium payment policy, right? That will seem like a tempting prospect to most of us because instead of paying premium for 30 years or 40 years, just get it done within 10 years. But the problem is you pay through your nose for this privilege of limiting your premium, right? So in the right side, I've made a comparison between a regular and a limited premium payment plan. So for an insurance, a life insurance product. So if you choose a regular plan here for a 1 crore cover, you're able to pay a premium of 26,000 odd rupees. But when you choose a limited premium plan, you can see there is almost a threefold increase in your premium. Now, the total premium that you pay, if you simply add up the premium, you will see that the limited premium seems cheaper. But this is without accounting for the time value of money. Now, with a limited premium plan, what you're doing is you're giving the insurer all the money in the first 10 years itself, though he is covering you for 30 or 40 years. So suppose you were to die after 10 years or 15 years, you will not save any premium. Whereas in a regular plan, you will have that saved, right? So if you do the time value of money and do a present value, which is basically that in today's rupees, how much you're paying, the regular plan is far, far cheaper than the limited plan. So this is why we recommend that you should take the regular plan. So even if you have to pay premium for many years, please do it, right? So the minuses here are, if you take limited premium, it is high annual outgo, no premium savings in the case of a claim, and high outflow in today's rupees. A second option that is put to you by insurers is, do you want a rising sum assured or a level sum assured, right? So a rising sum assured, basically at specific milestones in your life, the insurer decides on the milestones, you have no flexibility. So the insurer will say, now you're single. In case you get married, we will bump up your insurance cover by 30%. When your first child is born, we will bump up your insurance cover by another 25%. At the fifth anniversary of your policy, we will automatically increase your sum assured, right? This is what a rising sum assured is. The problem with this is you have no flexibility to decide when you want to increase your cover. Now, can you predict that you will get married at 35 or 25? Can you give an age to it? Can you say your first child will be born at 30 or 35? We can't, right? So instead of locking into such rigid conditions with a rising sum assured, it is better that you opt for a level sum assured. And then later you can always buy new term policies whenever your life situation changes. Unlike health policies, there is no top up option in term insurance policies, unfortunately. So each time your life situation is changing, you may have to buy a new cover. But that's not a problem, because anyway you will be getting the money from the beneficiaries will be getting the money from the insurer when something happens to you, right? Then we come to this, something which is no less than a scam in my opinion. It is called return of premium plans, right? The key reason why many people in India hesitate to buy term insurances, they feel that they're paying the insurer money over so many years, but in the end of it, they are getting nothing, right? That's true. If you survive an insurance policy throughout its term, in the end, you will not get nothing. You will not get anything. If you don't survive, your beneficiaries are going to get a lump sum. But because you want returns from an insurance plan, which is not its objective at all, if you opt for return of premium plans, in the return of premium plan, what the insurer tells you is you pay premium for 30-40 years. At the end of that period, the insurer will just return all the premium paid to you back, right? Do note that the insurer does not pay you any interest or any other return. He'll just give you the money that you give back with zero return, right? But the problem is when you opt for return of premium plans, again your premium doubles in most cases. So we did actual comparisons of many insurers. Compared to their normal plan, the return of premium plan costs double the amount in annual premium. So throughout your life, you will be paying double the amount, and they will just return your money to you at the end of the period. This entails a huge opportunity loss, right? So don't forget that in a term insurance product, you're committing to make an investment for 20, 30, or 40 years. When you have to make an investment for that long, it is best that you keep your premiums at a modest and affordable level. If you commit to a very high premium, then when in the years where your income is lower, you will struggle and the policy will lapse, right? So I've just given an example here for a ROP plan for a 45-year-old. This is also a live plan which we took. So the regular premium in this plan is 35,000 rupees. But if you opt for return of premium at the end of 30 years or 25 years, the return of premium will that premium will cost 62,000 rupees. Instead, I would say just a regular premium plan, invest the savings that you made here into a debt fund SIP at just 6%, very nominal return assumption, and you get 23 lakh when you're 75. If the insurer returned the money, you only got 18.6 lakhs. So this tells you why ROP can be safely skipped, and insurers are merely scamming you when they tell you these are free term plans or no cost term plans. Now coming to the fourth thing, riders, right? Often when you go to an insurer's website and start doing the clicking through for buying a policy, some insurers even by default add a rider, add one or many riders to your policy, which increase the cost of the policy. So I've just covered two big riders here, though they offer many more. The first is accidental death benefit rider, which is basically in the case of normal death, there is a sum assured. If you die by accident, unfortunately, your family will get double the benefit that was promised to you normally, right? So when you take an accidental death benefit rider, the family will get more in case you die by accident, right? What are the minuses of this? The problem is all riders come with a lot of fine print, which you need to be aware of, right? So insurers actually give out this money only if you die within a specific number of days of the accident. So typically the plan says within 120 days or within 180 days, if there is you die after an accident, then you will get, your family will get this benefit. A second exclusion will be, suppose you did self-injury or you went mountain climbing or rock climbing and fell off and something happened to you. In those cases, the insurer will not shell out the accident death benefit to your family, right? So you have to be very aware of these exclusions when you sign up. A second thing is the critical illness rider. This is a useful rider, but the problem is it's very costly, right? So what the critical illness rider does is, in the case you are diagnosed with a critical illness, which is a life-threatening illness, in that case you will be given a lump sum, right? This is not a death benefit, this is a lump sum benefit. So you will get a lump sum to replace the income that you will be losing because you've been diagnosed with this problem, with this illness, right? Usually insurers give a limited list of illnesses which will be covered. So it will not be in the case of any illness, only those listed out 25 or 30 illnesses that are actually given by the insurer. If you are afflicted by those, then you will get compensation. A second minus is that this is a very, very expensive rider. Your premium really shoots up a lot if you sign up for critical illness rider. Across insurers, when we did comparisons, we also found that there was no standardization. One insurer for covering 36 illnesses was charging an additional premium of 6,000 rupees. Another insurer for covering 20 odd illnesses was charging you additional premium of more than 10,000 rupees. So there is no standardization of how much you can be charged for this rider, right? So instead of opting for a critical illness rider on your main term plan, it makes sense to buy one standalone health insurer. Standalone health insurers offer critical illness coverage, which cover more diseases and often at better cost, right? So if you really want to buy a cost-effective insurance policy, skip all these bells and whistles. No riders, no return of premium, no whole life, etc. Right? So having talked about the key things that you need to, the questions that you need to answer while choosing a term plan, we come to how to choose your insurer, right? So this is what Prime Investor is mainly trying to help you with, right? So how do you choose your insurer? So do you just do a search on the internet and whichever is the cheapest premium, do you just go for it? We think that this approach is flawed because while premiums are important, a life cover is a very, very critical component of your portfolio and you need to choose it more carefully. Okay. So we think one thing which is very important and more important than the level of premium is the stability of the insurer. Now in India, you know that many global companies keep entering financial services and exiting. They have a very revolving door kind of approach to the market. So you don't want your insurer to just suddenly say goodbye because of a global restructuring and go away, right? So it's very important that the insurer stays around in order to honor your claim. A second thing is you don't want an insurer to go bust and then leave you in the lurch, right? So there are various financial parameters on which you need to analyze an insurer. A third thing is insurers are also very notorious globally for not honoring their claims. So they take premiums from you for a long time, and in the end they'll say that there is some fine print or something that you didn't comply with, and they will refuse to pay your claim, right? So these are very important factors on which you need to check your insurer and not just go by premiums when you choose the plan, right? So how to choose an insurer? So after putting a lot of thought into this at Prime Investor in the last 3 or 4 months, we have arrived at a proprietary methodology on what are the factors you should consider before even starting to rank the insurers or the term plans, right? So the first thing we thought is that we should eliminate, there are 24 private life insurers in India, apart from LIC, which is public sector. So we thought first we should whittle down the size of this list and not have too many insurers who are eligible to for you to invest in, right? So the first thing we did was apply criteria to the insurers. So these are the 3 gating criteria which we used to eliminate the smaller insurers. The first thing was we chose the ones with a larger investment book. Why larger investment book? Now, insurance is a business where you keep premiums to the insurer for many years and you're not demanding anything back from the company, right? The only thing you're hoping for is in the case of an unfortunate event, the company is going to pay a lump sum, right? So what is very important for this company? It is important that it has a large investment book and manages this book well, right? So all this money that you're parking with it over the years, it should result in a fairly large corpus which the insurer can then use to service the claim. So the first criteria we used was the book size or the investment book size or AUM of the insurer. So we considered insurers with AUMs of over 10,000 crore because this was a decent size going by the current list of AUMs, right? We also thought an insurer is asking you to stick with him for 20 years, 30 years or 40 years, right? So isn't it important for the insurer himself to have a track record? So this is why we thought we should at least have insurers with a 10-year track record, no newbies on the list, right? Third, a solvency ratio. Now the question people ask actually, especially after these defaults like IL&FS, DHFL, etc., is that what should we do if our insurer goes broke? I mean, what I'm paying premiums faithfully, but suppose the insurer mismanages the money and goes broke, what happens, right? So precisely to prevent this from happening, the regulations actually require insurers to maintain something called a solvency ratio. So what is a solvency ratio? Broadly, it tells you if the insurer has enough capital to service sudden bunched up claims. So suppose there is a pandemic like COVID and if the insurer is flooded with claims, can the insurer still afford to pay everybody? That is what the solvency ratio tells you. So the solvency ratio, in more technical terms, is based on the solvency margin. The margin is the present value of an insurer's assets and premium collections in future measured against likely claims and liabilities. Now, you don't need to know all this technical stuff. What you need to know is in India, actually, IRDA requires insurers to have a minimum solvency ratio of 1.5 times. So, if the liabilities are 1 time, they should have assets equal to 1.5 times. So, 50% cushion the insurer should maintain, right? So, while deciding on our list of insurers, we only took the ones with solvency ratio of more than 1.8 times. We are just providing for extra cushion, right? Secondly, having chosen the short list of insurers, how do we further filter this list and tell you which is the best one to choose? Now, we could simply go by premiums, but as we told you, premium alone may not be enough to verify if the insurer will truly settle your claim and is well governed, right? So, we used other criteria. Now, the first thing is persistency ratio. When we started this webinar, we started by telling you how insurance is a most missold product, right? So across insurance products, if you see, actually people do not stick with their policies for very long. Yeah, most insurers have dropout rates which are very high after 1 year, 2 years, etc. This is why actually IRDA requires insurers to disclose what is their persistency ratio after first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and fifth year, right? What is persistency ratio? The proportion of policy holders who stick with the insurer beyond this period, right? So to arrive at our rankings, we looked at the 37th and 61st month persistency. So to put it more simply, at the end of third year and fifth year, if the insurer had a large number of people sticking on, it shows that he's offering a decent product, right? A second thing and very crucial thing is claim settlement ratio. So for the past policy holders, how many claims has the insurer really settled? So claim settlement can be in two ways. One can be the number of claims. The second can be the value of claims settled by the insurer. So this data is sourced from IRDA because insurers use different kinds of formulae to calculate it. We wanted a standard source to use the data from IRDA, right? A third thing is the insurer's market share. How much of the new business premium collected in any particular year belongs to actually came to this particular insurer. Now, a fun fact here. If you actually go strictly by the solvency, you cannot pick LIC because LIC has one of the lowest solvency ratios in the industry at just 1.5, right? But the thing is, with LIC, you don't have to worry about solvency because there is a clause in the LIC Act which says that all the insurance claims promised by the LIC are backed by a sovereign guarantee. So what does that mean? Even if LIC goes bust, which is not at all likely, if it goes bust, the central government will step in and pay the claims of the policyholder. So this clause makes LIC a very safe insurer, even though its solvency ratio is not among the best. Apart from all these very quantitative factors, we also took another factor into consideration, which is the management change risk. If you're an investor in mutual funds or insurance or any financial product in India, you would surely be aware that in India, actually, insurers, financial product companies keep changing, right? Their ownership. There'll be a takeover. There'll be a global restructuring because of which they sell their India business. Mutual funds have seen so much churn in the sponsors and asset management companies, right? So have insurers. Now, insurance industry in India particularly is a very nascent industry. Particularly private insurers in India are only 20-25 years old, right? So, and their parents are in constant churn. So, one thing which we thought we should really factor into our rankings is if the parent is in talks for a management change or there's a risk of an acquisition, we thought we should somehow disadvantage that insurer in our rankings. And for this reason, we actually put a management change risk as one of the qualitative factors that we consider while giving out our term insurance rankings, right? So finally, we come to the factor. You look at the cost-effective premiums given your age and gender. So if you want to, we can go and check out our rankings shortly, how they look. Yeah. So these are our rankings. Quickly, if you go through it, you are able to sort this by male and female. You can also sort it by the age of the insured. We cannot give every age, sorry. But broadly, if you go to the age closest to you, you will be able to get a rough indicator of who is the top ranked plan and who is the lowest ranked plan. So we've not only given the age, we've also given the annual premiums, the coverage, and we have short comments on why we've ranked the insurer as we have. But only subscribers can access this data. So, yeah. So, in short, how do you get maximum insurance at minimum cost? This is what we promised you at the beginning of the webinar. And by now, I think you should have a fair idea of this. Firstly, you need to estimate your cover correctly. Don't go for round numbers or thumb rules. Use our calculator and get a fairly close estimate of how much cover you need, right? Secondly, do not opt for whole life plans, plans up to 99, 85, etc. Stick with a cover that only lasts as long as your working life, which is 65 or 75 years of age, right? Why 75? Some people are asking, why will I work till 75? We don't know, right? In this generation, none of us have pensions given by the government, so we may be forced to work till 75. So that's why we put the age as 75. Even in our rankings, we've assumed 75 is the age of coverage. When the insurer asks you for multiple options, like do you need return of premium, do you need limited premium, just say no, no, no to all these options, and that will get you to the lowest cost plan, right? Skip the riders. These riders can be easily bought individually, and there is no need to sign up for them along with your term cover. So then finally, you can use the rankings actually to get the best combination of low premium and stability from your insurer. Be sure to try out the ranking module. Are you one of those people who likes to do their own homework on everything? You don't want to go by what others say. We really appreciate such investors because we do feel whatever advice you get, you need to double check and triple check it. And the agency should lie with you on making any investment decision. So it is for these kind of investors that we have put in this DIY insurance tool. So I explained various parameters to you, like the persistency ratio, claim settlement ratio, etc. There is also a glossary there where you can read upon this. So if you know these terms, you can actually go to this DIY insurance rankings, which can help you make these comparisons for yourself, right? So this is a handy module. If you read on top, you will know how to use this basic tool. So this allows you to choose your gender. You can go by age also. We allow you to customize your columns according to your wish. So you can add solvency ratio. If you think persistency is important, you add persistency, claims ratio. So you can just play around with this and get the data ready-made for you, and you can make your choice based on any criteria you like, right? Be sure to check this out. This is available even for trial users. So with that, let us wrap our webinar on term insurance. I hope you found it useful, though I think I've been very technical at places. I hope you enjoyed it. Do note our disclaimer. We've just given the examples which are here just as illustration. Do not think they're product recommendations. We are a research analyst platform, so we cannot give very customized recommendations to people. You're supposed to do your own research based on the information that we provide you with. We will be quite happy to take questions if you have any. So feel free.
Thank you very much, Harati. People have really appreciated the webinar and what you've been speaking on. The comments have come pouring in. There are lots of questions. Let's see how many and which questions we can take on. You want to take a swig of water before we get
Yeah.
started? Yeah, please do. Please do. Yeah, 1 second. So you want to go to
Yeah, I want to go back.
the you can turn the screen sharing off.
Correct.
Like-
Yeah.
All right. You ready for the questions?
Yeah.
I'll. I have more than a dozen questions, and probably they are still coming in. Let me start with a simple one. Okay, Raghav Dangre wants to know: mutual funds bundle insurance with SIP. Is it a
Yeah.
good idea to go with them, or for a separate term insurance, or a mix up? What do you think?
Unless the insurance part is free, I wouldn't advise you to go for bundle products. It is definitely not good to mix up multiple objectives in a single product. Just like we say that don't invest in insurance for returns, we'd also say don't invest in mutual funds for insurance. As we mentioned in the first slide, insurance you cannot. It is not enough to have cover of 10 lakh, 20 lakh, etc. Anybody who is earning a reasonable sum will require a term cover which goes into a few crores of rupees. And typically, when you do an SIP plus insurance products, the cover you will get will only be a few lakhs. So, I wouldn't advise bundling the two. Unless it's free. If it's free, please take it and enjoy it.
Okay, thank you. Sundaram would like to know, and I'll read the question as is. Some of the insurance, example Tata AIA guaranteed return, offer pension cum insurance. Looks good from the standpoint of insured, since pension for self and insurance cover payout for family is provided. Your thoughts, please.
So, pension from insurance products, is it?
Yeah.
See, typically we don't advise this because any product which combines any investment component with an insurance component, the insurance is typically very small. So instead of pension from insurance, you can opt for products like HDFC Sanchay Plus, which we recently actually reviewed, which give you a guaranteed income lifelong. Please check out that product. We're talking about deferred annuity products. Deferred annuity products, typically the returns are very low compared to these plans. So please go for guaranteed income products. So that is the category of product that will suit you well. If this comes with a small insurance component, you need not worry, but this is the kind of product you should go for. Is my voice echoing or something?
Yeah,
Next question. Yeah, Rajkumar would like to know if we can split term insurance between two or more insurer.
Yes, you can. In fact, given that we talked about the risk of churn, claim settlement, etc., it does make sense to split your insurance between two or three insurers. But when you do this, please be sure to inform each insurer that you're taking other plans, right? So each insurer, when he decides whether to give you an insurance cover, he evaluates actually your income generating ability and tries to estimate how much cover you should be eligible for. So if I am an ordinary Aarti Krishnan and I ask for 100 crore cover, no insurer will give me that because they know that my income is not that much and my insurable value is not that high, right? So you have to inform each insurer, make a declaration saying that you do have plans from other insurers. Once you do that, there is no risk. Once your beneficiaries go and claim the insurance from any insurer, they'll be able to get the claim from all of the insurers with whom you have been paying premiums.
Next question is from, it's more of a statement. Please feel free to agree or disagree. Longer covers may be suitable if the person wants to leave behind a sum for charitable giving or from a estate planning perspective. Your thoughts?
This is actually a very developed market notion. I'll tell you why. Usually in the Western countries, when very wealthy people die and they bequeath their wealth to their descendants or heirs, the heirs have to pay a very hefty estate duty. So there is estate duty which will cut into the amount of wealth that you leave to your heirs, right? In India, we have, so people think instead of leaving it as investments or shares or bonds, it is better to leave it as insurance because insurance is not taxed in most countries. Whereas in India, we don't have estate duty at all, right? So this basic logic of basically leaving money to your dependents through insurance, this is not needed. More direct routes like leaving your demat account with nominees or leaving your shares or mutual funds directly to your heirs is possible. And suppose you put the money that you save from a whole life policy into even a 6% or 7% instrument, the returns will be far higher. So you will be able to leave your heirs far more money than you can do through a whole life policy. In India also, there is a lot of talk that in future estate duty will actually be introduced because they are trying to try various means to tax the wealthy, right? So if the estate duty actually comes into being, then yes, it will make sense to take a whole life plan in order to leave money to your heirs. But until the day we don't have excise duty and we can pass on the money to the heirs without estate duty, it will make better sense not to take whole life and to invest that money in other options like mutual funds or bonds or FDs.
Okay. One recent question is, um, after getting a term insurance, do we need to update the insurance company time to time about our health problems and change in habits?
No. Actually, the contract that you sign initially is sufficient and you don't have to update them. So, why this is so is, if you know, health insurance actually is a contract which is renewable every year. Whereas life insurance is a contract that you sign for multiple years. So at the beginning itself, the insurer is supposed to estimate the probability of your contracting any illness and dying, right? So the premium itself is fixed on the basis of a mortality table, which factors in all these contingencies. So it is not necessary for you to update your life insurer about your health conditions. It is only when you take a health insurance plan, every year you're renewing the plan, you need to update your insurer at that time, right?
Thank you. There is a question about the term insurance combined with Married Women Protection Act. ICICI Life Insurance, especially, is offering something that's called term insurance with MWP, is what it's called. Um, is it beneficial, or is it something that people should consider?
I'm sorry, I don't know enough about this. I think I will read upon it and we can even write something about it on our platform at a later stage. I think the Married Women Protection Act decides how much wealth can be bequeathed to her or to other beneficiaries in the event of death. Without knowing the legal provisions, I really wouldn't like to comment on this. I would like to read up and then get back.
Absolutely. I think we can take it up separately. Another person, Sudhakar, wants to know, isn't it better to take term insurance at a young age, like at 25 years? If he takes term insurance policy, it will come at a lower rate. Hence, is it not desirable to take term insurance at a young age rather than at the age of 35 years, by which time he or she gets married and has children and all that stuff? Is it a better idea to take it at a young age? I think it's also part of the insurance company's pitch that, young people should take term insurance.
Yeah. Young age is okay, but too young is not desirable. So at 19 or 20 and all, there's no need to take up insurance. If you are quite sure in your mind that you, first of all, if you have dependent parents, yes, at a very young age also you should take because they may be depending on you for your income, right? So you need to take. Secondly, if you made up your mind that you are going to get married and have children, if you have great clarity on that, definitely you can take it at a young age because it will be cheaper. So if you plan to marry in your 30s, at 25, you can take an insurance policy so that you get it at a cheaper cost. But I find when I look at people, young people today, many of them are not sure about these decisions of whether they're going to get married or whether they're going to have children and all this stuff. So, in case you don't plan to have dependents, it is really wasteful to pay premiums throughout your life to some insurer so that a stranger can benefit from it, right? So, that is why I feel that if you have clarity, yes, it is cheaper to buy insurance, but don't make it too early. After 25 seems okay to me, 25 to 30 kind of age, but not earlier than that actually, because our mind can change a lot, right, as we age.
Okay. Celine Santiago, what a fantastic name. Celine Santiago wants to know, in a regular pay plan, we get to pay premium for 30, 40 years annually. Chances of discontinuation are more. I feel it is better for a younger person to pay for a limited period and be done. I don't know how one can pay for a limited period and be done, but
No, he's talking of the limited premium payment term. See, the flip side of that is in a regular plan, suppose you have signed up at 45 years of age and up to 75 you have a policy. Suppose you die at 65, right? Then you pay premium only for 20 years, 10-year premium you don't have to pay. The insurer will pay your claim. In a limited premium payment plan, the opposite is true. Between 45 and 55, you would have paid all your premium, and the insurer will be quite enriched at your expense. And if something happens to you at 60, also you don't save the premium. So that is the flip side. Generally, and say we have looked at this from a cost and the financial point of view. So from a financial point of view, in a present value terms, it is cheaper to have regular premium payment. Now, suppose you are self-employed or you have a very job with a very lumpy income, or you feel that your career itself may not last beyond 10 years. In those cases, definitely limited premium payment may be advantageous to you. But this is more a qualitative and an emotional decision rather than a financial decision. So I'm not saying limited premium payment is horrible for everybody. I'm just saying that it is less costly to do regular. If you prefer limited because you feel you'll skip the premium or your income won't be stable, you can go for the limited premium payment term.
Okay. Rahul would like to know, in a standalone critical illness cover, your premiums increase as per your age and insurers can always increase future rates. What is the issue with the CI rider, which guarantees the premium and the coverage apparently under ICICI and Max is fairly exhaustive?
So what is the issue with the life insurance critical illness you're asking? Yeah, what I've seen there is basically the coverage is for a very limited number of illnesses. Unless you're very sure what kind of critical illness you will get. I mean, are we Nostradamus to know what critical illness we'll get? So the list is quite restrictive. So suppose you have a critical illness which doesn't fall in that list given by the insurer, then you will be actually taking a rider which won't be of much utility to you. As you say, it is cost effective in the sense that the premium doesn't change every year when you take a CI rider. In a standalone policy, the premium does change every year. The second point I would like to highlight is, as we discussed, it makes sense to take term cover fairly young at 25 or 30, whenever you are starting in your career and have dependents. Whereas you may not need a critical illness cover right from the time you're 25 or 35, right? Most of us have risk of contracting critical illness when we are in our 40s or so, right? So I feel the decision about critical illness can be postponed to a later date. There is no need to pay a lifelong premium for critical illness. We can limit that policy to a time when we feel we are prone to critical illness. So that is the reason why I feel CI rider can be skipped if you want to keep your cost low.
Okay, thank you. If Raghav wants to know, if I take multiple term plans from an insurance company in the event of death, will the company pay on the total insurance, or is there a possibility of certain policy getting rejected? Is it possible to take multiple term insurance with the same?
They will pay multiple policies because you may take multiple policies at different ages, right? So initially at 25 may take one, 35 may take one. As we said in the calculator, depending on your life situation, you may need more and more term cover, right? So the insurer will honor your term policy as long as you make disclosures. So you have to tell the insurer you already have one policy, this is the second one, right? If you make the declaration, then they will honor the claims. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, there's another slightly general question. If mortality rate shoots up because of COVID, natural calamities, etc., how will they pay then? I mean, is it the insurance company's problem, not our problem, or is it a systemic risk that we have to undertake as well?
Very good question, actually. So if you see, after COVID has started, most insurance companies have actually hiked up their premium rates for their term insurance plans. So typically when the premiums are fixed for term insurance policies, insurers have to fix them based on a mortality table that is given out by IRDA. Okay, they cannot do it arbitrarily. So this mortality table has to be approved by IRDA, and then insurers have some flexibility to tweak around with it. So the mortality table is typically drawn up on the basis of a very long period of statistical data, not on 1 year's experience, but on 10 or 20 years experience of the insurers. But therefore, one event like COVID should not really affect the outcome. If you see also, the mortality rate in India has not gone up because of COVID. Okay, this is a fun fact. So because of COVID, actually, the deaths through other causes like accidents on the roads, those kind of causes have actually come down. So if you look at overall death rates in India, they have not gone up due to COVID, right? But despite this, actually, I have seen premiums on term insurance plans go up since this COVID started. So yes, though the mortality rate should not be affected by such one-off events, insurers do use every excuse to increase the premium slightly. So it is better not to take insurance after a crisis erupts, right? After earthquake starts, if you try and run for an earthquake cover, you're going to pay a lot, right? It's always better to take insurance in normal times, in calm times, because that is when insurers don't charge you too much.
There is one question that is coming around right about now. It's a specific question, but I think we can take it. I am a government, Anand Kumar says, I am a government servant of 46 years, eligible for pension. I will get pension at the age of 59 years. How much long period in years should I take term insurance? I think this will apply for people who have some pension coming their way. So
That's a very good question. So actually, I am not sure if you have family pension also, though. So in the event of your death, will your spouse get something? I don't know. Usually, your spouse will get half your pension, from what I know of this. So what you should try and do is you should try to cover the period up to which your wife will need support. Okay. So suppose you think that if your working life will end at 60 and up to 75 or 80, actually, your wife will need your income support, then the amount that is you will get as pension. See, your wife may get half your pension. So 50% of your pension amount, at least for that period, I feel you should cover it through term insurance. So when you make that calculation, you may like to actually add that part also into it, right? When you calculate your term cover. So you take the likely expenses up to retirement. Beyond retirement, you try and add up one component where you say that this is the pension that my wife will lose if I am not around.
okay. A slight non-term question. I think just to give a variation, we can take this. About HDFC Sanchay Plus. Again, it's an investment insurance product. You recommend this in our article. I don't think we quite recommended it. We reviewed it. The question is, Kiran Mehra wants to know what type of investors should consider this?
Investors who value certainty over returns. Suppose for me, many people ask me this question. So when they are just going to retire, or say 10 years before retirement, they are so used to getting a regular salary that they feel really worried and really stressed out by the fact that after retirement they'll not get any regular payment, and they have to manage it themselves, right? If you are really psyched by the prospect of not having enough money to live on, or if you're not good at actually churning your investments, etc., today even fixed income investments actually require a lot of monitoring of investment interest rates and so on and so forth. So if you want a basic level of income that you want assured, you can use Sanchay Plus type policies for this. Other insurers also offer such plans, and we'll be covering them. So you can use these products to get a minimum level of income. Suppose I feel that the minimum I need to live on after retirement or after leaving my job is 20,000 rupees a month. You take enough Sanchay Plus to give you that 20,000 rupees. Don't go beyond that. For the rest, you invest in higher return earning avenues, right? And you can actively manage that. But to get a basic level of income. Secondly, if you want to ensure that your spouse or somebody who is not very good at managing money, you want to ensure some pension kind of payment, then also you can use this Sanchay Plus. So to put it very shortly, you should not worry too much about the return. You should worry only about predictability. In that case, Sanchay Plus kind of products are good for you.
Thank you. One more general question, but I think there'll be quite a few people in this category. So let me just ask you this. If we have already been missold, how to exit those products with minimal damage and move on to ideal products? This is a very
Yeah,
common question.
this is a question we get very, very often, and this is that sunk cost thing which I mentioned. So, thankfully, now, earlier what used to happen is insurers used to have many products where if you exit before the locked in term, you will not get anything, or there will be such high surrender charges that you will get only 20-30% of your money, right? But IRDA has actually tightened these rules a lot in recent years, and in most plans, there is this facility to convert your product into a paid up product. Okay. So instead of surrendering your product, you should try and convert it into a paid up plan, right? When you do paid up, what happens? So whatever premiums you paid so far, based on that, your cover and the benefits will be reduced proportionately. So suppose I've signed up for a 20-year product and I've paid premium for 6 years. Whatever premium I paid for 6 years, in proportion to that, the life cover will be reduced and the benefits will also be reduced. But you don't lose your money, right? Your money remains logged in for the remaining term of the plan. At the end of it, whatever benefit was promised will be given to you after some deductions for charges. But you will not lose the money. So this option is available to you if you want to exit from a bad plan. If you're signed into a bad plan which doesn't give you enough cover, I do advise you to stop paying premium and to get from the insurer how to make it into a paid up plan. Please do enquiries and get it done.
Maybe we can take a couple of more questions. So here is one last but one question. Rajkumar wants to know, if my insurer skips medical test, should I suspect about their credibility?
It is dicey when an insurer skips medical tests. Many people use this as a lure to get customers, because if you say no medical test, many people sign up for it. But then later there is a higher probability of your claim being rejected. In case the insurer skips medical test, you should be very, very careful about filling up the declaration form that comes with you with the proposal. Make sure that you fill it up yourself and don't allow the agent to fill it up, because the agents, in their anxiety to get you into the plan, they get commission after all, they tend to put no for everything, and in the end your claim can be disputed. So it's a very sound question. You should be wary of insurers who ask you, who tell you can skip. If they say you can skip, what you should look at the declaration form very carefully and fill it up very diligently.
Absolutely, something that to be something to be careful about. And our last question, we are running into the hour and 15-minute mark. So the last question is, Neeraj Chauhan wants to know, ICICI has changed their product and have made critical illness cover mandatory. The question is, how will that affect your rankings and how frequently would you incorporate our changes? I mean, our rankings will be updated on a quarterly basis, but that's a separate thing. Is this something that we should be concerned about? I mean, making CI cover mandatory.
Is it mandatory? So when we ran these rankings, it was an add-on. It was not mandatory. Perhaps this is a COVID-related change. In this case, you should not opt for that plan and you should opt for an alternative insurer, in my opinion. It is not correct for them to make anything mandatory.
Along with that, the question is, can we take critical illness and accident protection policy without taking term insurance as a separate thing?
Yes, life insurers offer separate accident benefit policies, which are quite cheap, very nominal cost. In critical illness, you can go to a health insurer and take a standalone health cover. You cannot take it from the insurer, life insurer. You will have to go to a health insurer.
I think we will close our session with that question. I think we took a lot of questions, maybe more than 12 to 15 questions. And thanks a lot for everybody who attended and asked questions. Very good questions. I hope it was an informative session, and I hope session and the questions, answers to the questions made it even more, added even more clarity. We will be doing more such webinars. We will continue to look for your support for all the webinars that we'll be doing in future as well. We will be sharing this PowerPoint, and there'll be replay of this webinar available as well. So please watch it again if you have any questions, and please take a look at the PPT for any clarifications in the future. And for those who are attending this program who are not yet subscribers of Prime Investor, let me close with another request to you to become subscribers and benefit from our platform, from such and other wonderful, highly credible, independent researched products from the Prime Investor platform. Thank you all for attending, and thank you very much, Arati, for a wonderful presentation. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I had a great time, especially these questions. I find that all the interactions, both live and on the website, are really a learning experience for me also. Because otherwise, we will keep writing in a one-sided way, and we don't know what people are looking for. So these type of interactive platforms are really useful to know what people want to know about insurance. Thank you for sparing a Saturday morning and a lovely day here in Chennai in front of the computer. Thank you.